Hey guys, what's going on? Monday morning breakdown. So we are looking at the DXY. The DXY is looking very nice. So essentially we are still moving in that sort of momentum to the upside. We can see on the weekly that we have had those aggressive closes, which are nice. However, I would not be surprised if we do get some sort of aggressive movement up or a pullback back down and then we move up. So that's basically what I'll be looking at. However, just looking at the big sequence of things, it does look like we'll most probably get more of an aggressive move, and then we could pull up to maybe, some sort of a zone up here. So that's basically what I'll be keeping my eye on throughout this week. However, just bear in mind that if we do start correcting back down here, we might be able to get re-entered on quite a lot of US related pairs. So DXY is fairly simple. I'm just basically looking for an entry to form, not on the DXY but on the related pairs. And then we should see the US dollar starting to climb if it does aggressively move. So we'll have to keep on waiting in anticipation for that, but it is looking very, very nice, especially with this bullish momentum here followed by this correction to the upside. So we'll have a little look at that, but it is looking very nice. So we're going to jump into the watch list now. So we have Euro Aussie. Euro Aussie is one that I'm really excited about, to be honest, because if we do get this gameplay, it's going to be very nice. Now, I understand that when looking at this on the higher time frame, it doesn't really jump out to you, really and truly, because it can seem a little bit messy in sequence. However, there's two ways that I'll be looking at this, and it is somewhat of a neutral zone. However, there is a strong possibility that we can still decline and fill this area over here, which I'm kind of more looking at right now. We are so early in the move as well that this could be a phenomenal area to price ourselves, but we need to be very patient and make sure we're strategically placing ourselves correctly rather than just getting involved in the market anywhere. So the main thing I'm looking at right now is just to see if throughout this week if price can somewhat gravitate back to this sort of override zone over here, and then I can look for an entry in this area. However, it's very possible that we can still decline and drop off over here. You'll see throughout all of my charts I've gone off and put alerts in there as well, just because I could be busy doing a few bits. I'm in the middle of some property deals as well, so obviously capital is the most important thing to me, but at the same time I don't want to be taking trades or looking at charts when I don't need to be. So by setting these alerts, they kind of just let me know where I need to be, but coming on every morning or evening and just double checking these charts and just having a look at how it's playing out, what's forming, has anything changed, knowing if I need to maybe remove that alert, set a new alert, and so forth. So those are the most important things that I can really kind of say help me with my day to day. But in regards to this, we have the two possibilities that we looked at yesterday during the SMB. Is we have this as the potential that price can gravitate all the way back up here, or price can just tap into this zone here and then sell off. So I'm also looking for this sort of 1, 2, 3 to the short, but we'll have a little look at that and we'll see how it plays out. But remember, we are taking a short-term position to this low, and then we'll evaluate if we're going to stay in the position and potentially scale in further down, or if price is going to potentially just gravitate back up. So those are sort of the sort of thoughts that I was going through my head at the moment. At the moment, like I said, it's kind of premature. Just need to wait for price to play out. We could have that bull momentum that we're looking for, as we're seeing across a few euro pairs at the moment. So we could probably see this kind of come up here, maybe even today if we're lucky, but most probably it's going to be an evening trade in my opinion. So be sharp, because we do have some news coming out as well, which is always good to map out for the week. So we have some, once again, it doesn't really matter, but we have some confidence change and confidence index, which potentially could cause some volatility. So if we do gravitate over here by the evening, I may potentially be strategic and then wait, and then when the news comes out and the volatility hits, I'll look for an entry, or perhaps maybe there might be an entry before the volatility, and then I can kind of lock in my profit. But who knows? We have to wait and see how price develops. It is looking very nice though for EA, so we'll move on to the next one, which is GA. So what I do like about this actually is the fact that even though that we have this trend that extended and we approached it structurally but corrective, we pushed away, we created a correction just on the outside, which we can say is outside hover, and then now we're somewhat just kind of dripping off. But the odds are it's going to be very difficult to maybe catch a trade in here, so I'm not going to be fixated on trying to catch a short. If I do get something, yeah, absolutely, I will try to entertain it. More so, I would be looking for, you know, something with a little bit more development, and then if I can catch something, that'll be great. If I don't, it is what it is. Where is it? Here. So yeah, I'd be looking for, you know, something to just kind of take me in there. Obviously, it won't probably be that big. Might get a larger flag over here and then drop off further, but more so, that's the sort of only entry I'll really be entertaining, so I'd have to keep my eye on it every now and again. But at the moment, is it worth me kind of putting it on? Not really, because I'm more so looking for a position if we reach this low for a long. So this would just be a counter position in the grand scheme of things, but I'm aware that we can still go bullish from here, hence the reason why I'm not going to entertain this trade. I'm going to wait for a price to potentially come down to this low, and then when we do get to this low, I'll be extra patient to look for a long position. So that's basically what I'm doing. But for me, because GA is going to be one that I am going to be definitely getting involved in sometime soon, I'm more than happy to keep it on my watch list so that I can monitor it, be in sync with this market, so that when it does come about, I can take full advantage of it. So that's one thing that I like to do, is even if I know I may or may not be taking a trade on something, I like to still monitor it so that I'm in sync with the market, so that whenever the price is forming or what it might be doing, I'm along with it. So essentially, if we just analyze this quickly and we look at the left hand side over here, you know, had I not been looking at this, I wouldn't really have caught this, but you know, we have some sort of formations over here where you can just kind of range bound them, and you can just look at these prices and see that, you know, there was some sort of structures in there, and then as this develops further, we could see that, you know, create a lower low, a higher low, and then this could be forming as a descending at this point. So, you know, once you understand how to trade particular structures, you get slightly better and better. But this is just something that, you know, keeps you in tune with the market, and understanding the sequence of a 1, 2, 3, even a 4 or 5 sometimes. You know, you have to really understand what's actually happening and what's developing. So obviously at this moment in time, we are in this bigger sort of squeeze lower. This hasn't really much changed. We are still going down here, but if we can potentially just tap into this and then start going bullish, you might be in the mega high time frame trade, which is the one that I'm more than happy to count my bucks on, because if I can get in a long position here with fairly good position and potential scale, then I could be scaling all the way back up to these highs, and then that will be phenomenal for my account portfolio. But at the moment, I'm not going to be too concerned with it. I'm just going to be extra patient, like I said, and wait for price to come. If an entry comes and it catches my eye and it's something that's in my risk reward and there's enough protection on the table, absolutely I'll jump on it without a second thought. But it would have to be in my plan, and also you know, I'd have to also understand that it's a short-term position to this low, even to this low. So is it in my risk reward, you know, and those sort of questions. Is it better for me to be patient and wait for it to get here? That's another question you'd have to ask yourself. So if you're looking at GA, obviously just bear that in mind, that we could potentially be getting that larger pullback to the high some point soon. The next one I am looking at is GBP CAD. Now GBP CAD is in a very prime area. Now this is one that I will say you have to be extra patient with it. The reason being is when you usually have a daily close around here, a lot of people are going to start getting caught out in the wrong area. So you don't want to be just jumping in a trade on market open sometimes, unless there's, you know, everything in the favor, like EEJ for example, which, you know, we can definitely see in the SMB. But looking at this and that huge bearish sort of push down, it's not the sort of price action where I'm just going to jump on it. I'm going to wait for a little bit more. As we can see, you know, this is where people would have probably got caught out. If we zoom into the 1 hour, they would see this tap into here and then start to bullishly, but very correctively, start pushing up. They might start to think that this is the beginning of the bull move. In a different scenario it might be, but because given the higher time frame and what could potentially be happening here, I wouldn't just get involved in the market right here. I'd be extra patient, wait for people to really get caught out. Remember, if people are entering the market here, let's say, their stops are probably going to be around about here. So in terms of a market correction to really clean people out, this would make more sense, right? And then it could be in line with you know, some sort of structure, which, you know, we've drawn on here as a possibility. It doesn't have to come this low, but it would just take some people out. So that's something that I would bear in mind, that, you know, the way I trade is known by hundreds and thousands of people. So, you know, in stop placements, you know, you have professionals, you have banks, institutions, hedge funds. They know where people are placing their stops for protection. So at the end of the day, you need to ask yourself as well, like, in an obvious area of stops, do you want to be leaving your stop there? Not really. But in a strategic place, absolutely. So you want to be kind of on both sides, but you don't want to think about it too much. Just make sure that you're protecting yourself as well as possible. Over here is definitely good protection, of course, but with everything that's kind of going with it, it's not really in our favor. If price rejected and pushed all the way up here and then started forming this, then I would be inclined to put my stop loss down here and then take the long, absolutely. But because we're still sitting at that low, it just holds a lot more risk than basically where we'd be up here. So just bear that in mind. Obviously, if you are looking at GBP CAD, I know it is one that, you know, a lot of people will be eyeing up right now because we are at this significant low area here, and we've kind of filled that little gap that, you know, maybe was keeping some people thinking, you know, there's possibilities there, but we are here now. So just bear in mind that if we are going to go long, it could be very soon, but there's a possibility as well that we can still drop off a little bit further. So don't just keep your eye focused on just taking the long. There'll be loads of opportunity if we are going to be going long. So keep that in mind, and don't kind of just jump in the trade for no reason. But we'll move on to the next one, which is GBP yen. GBP yen is looking phenomenal in my opinion. So if we just have a little look at the weekly, and we can see that, you know, this isn't obviously the confirmed structure at this point. I'd just say it's the nearest to what I could potentially see price go to, just given the formation of where structure is, the A to B movements, taking the pole, flag to the pole, let's see. So, you know, even if we do this, it kind of just makes a lot of sense in my opinion. So what I did there was, obviously it's just a tool I like to use to just measure up, we'll call it the flag and the pole. So if this is the start and then this is the flag, then we just take the pole to the flag and then we measure it from either the high or the low, just to see as a price point of where it could potentially be going as an additional confluence. Doesn't need to be used all the time, just something to look at. Now, what I'm actually looking at on GBP yen is obviously this large flag. Now, obviously it can look a little bit messy. I've kept this on just to kind of show the formation of where we're going, but I'll take it off for a little bit more simplicity. And then you can see over here on the 4 hour, if we just focus in on this bit of price, there's this as a middle section, right? So a middle section to this larger flag. To this, there isn't really a clear middle section for me to kind of say that this could be a flag, but because I have this, it's a possibility now that this can just be enough for it to tap into this and just sell off. So the larger flag is there as, you know, the prime one I'm looking at, because we can tap into this, fill in this gap, get to this high, and that's what I really want to be scaling in on. But we can sell off from here. So if it does start to sell off from here, I probably would not be involved, but would like you to just be aware that, you know, it's a possibility. And if it does start to sell off from here, don't be surprised. You know, it's fine. It's completely fine. Eventually, when we do get to this low, we'll be looking at a better entry regardless. Even if it doesn't come this week, it's completely fine. It'll come in next week and you'll be capitalizing then, and you'll be so much happier that you waited. Then you kind of just jumped into a position where you were, where you had a few more negative confluences to where you wanted to get involved. But honestly, I would probably just take these off, in my opinion, and I wouldn't even worry about it, and I'll just eye up this structure here. And then I'll just be like, well, okay, cool. And now I'm just going to wait, and I'm going to wait patient until price gets up here. And that's it. That's basically the gameplay I'll look at. Mark this in as the middle section. Do I even have a middle section option? Yep, there is. Yep, so, yep, that's it. Middle section. And that's it. I'm just waiting for this. And then keep it very, very simple. That's all you need to be seeing. And if you can catch that trade down to that low, there's 18% there on the table. You know, not to say that there probably isn't around about 15% from here to here, but that's a lot more, in my opinion, protected than you would see in many other trades. So That's basically for GBP yen. Keep a keen eye on that, because I think it's going to be a very, very nice trade if it does play out well. The next one I'm looking at over here is CAD yen. So this is one that obviously, you know, it's actually moved pretty aggressively and pretty quick, which I'm quite happy with, to be honest. You know, we had a little gap down, push up, and now we aggressively moved this override. Now we are pretty much in the prime area, and the 1 hour close is roughly about now. So we are moving into this area now. I wouldn't opt in for a trade immediately now. A lot of people might think, yeah, but we have this, you know, the trade is here. Sometimes it's better to just wait. You know, if you've done a lot of your you've gone through your foundation and stuff, and you've done the rule of 3, then you know that a push down flag is better. So you have to kind of put into your mind that if price is moving so aggressive at this point to this override, do I really want to be catching, you know, and let's just invert this for a second, because then the analogy works a little better. Do I want to be catching a falling knife, right? Because it's basically a knife falling at you, right? You're not going to catch it because you risk cutting your hand at that point. What you want to do is you want to wait for the rice. You want to wait for the knife to hit the floor and then bounce back up. And then when it's lost its momentum and it's not coming down so fast, it's bounced back up. Potentially, whilst it's kind of spinning around at this point, you might be able to catch it without cutting yourself because it's slowed down, and then pull it straight all the way back up. And that's basically the way I look at it. So regardless if it's going up or it's coming down, you don't want to be catching a knife, right? You want to be catching it if it's slowed down or if it's stopped. So the way you want to really kind of look at this now is, okay, we've got there, we're at the area now. Now is where I need to be extra patient and just evaluate, is it worth my risk to get involved? And if I do take this, what risk am I holding? So if I get involved in market price now and I try squeeze on a stop loss 27, am I protected? Yeah, okay, I am, but what do I risk? Well, I risk the knife to keep going a little bit more before it finds a floor. So don't get caught up with the risk reward. Like, yeah, that's phenomenal, but even if I caught the trade down here and, you know, it's bounced back now, it's even better, because even though I've lost, maybe, like, not even lost, but I may even get out the trade over here, right, or over here. We don't know it's going to come all the way down here, but if it does, you know, it's only a 2% difference at that point to 15%. You know, at 15% is incredibly great. So just bear that in mind when you are looking at this. But, you know, there's two areas where we'll be looking at this. I'll be looking at price potentially repelling from here, or coming up to this point here and then selling off. So it's basically just those. Now the next one is one that is a little bit of a bummer, but missed out on this one. So essentially what happened was Sunday market breakdown. We forecasted this, did see it, and it was one that I was absolutely happy to opt in for. I was going to take it for a 50 pip stop loss. What that was going to do was kind of cover me for the 1 hour retrace that I kind of missed at that point, to this low, kind of covering, protecting me. But then I just felt, you know, because obviously sometimes you just get this hunch that you don't want to take it. I kind of just thought, all right, you know what, I'm going to go sleep, I'll check it tomorrow. And then I woke up and it was flying up here somewhere. So it is what it is, unfortunately. However, just to kind of respect it, you know, you could have easily squeezed in 10 pip as well at that point, just because you would have been protected from here. I would have probably said around about 13, 14 would have been, probably 14 would have been the best bet. And then you'd currently be running roughly, I mean, on that, like I said, on market open, the position would have been pretty much immediately opened anyway. Yeah, it would have been running around about 10%. So it's not a bad position in a whole anyway. More so, I guess, you know, a pending order could have been suitable. I couldn't really tell you at that point. But yeah, the trade was good. The trade was definitely one that I would have probably opted in for on a different time zone. It's just because it was market open, spreads and whatnot. I just kind of thought, you know, I'll wait a bit more. Perhaps maybe it might trickle and then come down here, and then I could just catch in a better trade. But even so, I was going to open up the 50 pip stop loss, which would have probably left you with easily roughly around about 3% at this moment. You would have probably had about 2.5 to, yeah, about 2% locked in at that point there, and then you'd be holding that for the longer term move, and then the longer term move would be up to these highs really. So about 5% you'd be looking at, and then you've got the bigger move where you could be running around about 18. But like I said, don't worry about that at all, really and truly, because there'll be so much more opportunity along the way. You're gonna be able to get into so much better trades. So Even though you miss one trade, it is what it is. And that's the thing, like, I'll tell you something which has really helped me is I woke up, I did see the trade play out, and I didn't care. I was just like, oh, well, I'm happy that what I forecasted and what I was going to do would have made money. And that's more important to me, that I understood what I was doing, and I understood that I was going to make that decision, but I chose not to, just because I wasn't really in my flow state. I was busy. I just come back. I was quite full from eating food. My mindset wasn't as sharp as it could be. I wasn't prepared to take a loss as well. So mentally, I didn't want to just jump into a trade, and for that reason, I didn't take it. And even as a consequence of it flying in my favor, it could have gone the other way, but it didn't. It did go in my favor, which somewhat can dwell on your mind, but you have to just accept the fact that you will miss trades. You know, I could go for a long drive today and miss 5 trades, 4 trades, 3 trades. It doesn't matter. It is what it is. Just bear in mind that at the end of the day, you're not compromising your mindset, and that's the most important thing. So that basically summarizes my watch list. I'm going to move into my wildcards now. So yeah, let's jump into that. The wildcards. So what I do like about the wildcards is for USD yen, we are coming into this flag within a flag sort of territory now. So we do have these points just gravitating above, which price can easily just push through and go to the next one and then push through. So there's basically 2 areas I'm looking for. I'm looking for this sort of short position here where we kind of scooped back up, we've tapped into this high, and then will we kind of just extend and push up further, or can we tap into this and then sell off and make it to this low? I'm very, very favorable for this trade. I do need to be extra patient, but I think there will be a phenomenal entry on here if we get it. And I'm basically just looking at tapping in, tapping there, and then we go in short, and that's basically the game plan I'm looking for. How it plays out, you know, I might miss it, I might not. Something similar to this sort of price action here is kind of what I'm looking for, and I think that would be somewhat more favorable. Maybe some more aggressive short would be what I'm looking for, but who knows. Give it some time. I'm just going to wait now. Keep my eye on USD yen for the next hour, I think is more than likely. So I'll come back at around about 11 o'clock, eye this up, wait a bit, and then probably 12 o'clock it could maybe shape up. But then bear in mind there is some volatile news coming out in the evening as well, so if we do start to just hover and sit around here, that news might be a catalyst to give us enough volatility to just push us lower, but it can work in the opposite direction. So not trading the news, just going to trade what I see. And at the moment there isn't really any supporting structure in my opinion. I think, you know, there's this, but this isn't something that really and truly just jumps out to me. I think I'm more so just going to wait for price to kind of just reveal itself. So if we can get something, that's great. But looking at the DXY as well, it does look like the DXY could also have that drop off as well, which is quite nice. But then it doesn't look like it's going to be a full-term drop off. It looks like it could potentially just be something a little bit larger. So we might get something like this and then drop off over here and then go long, which always is a possibility, but I would look for that aggressive short personally. So let's just wait and see. Honestly, it's hard to tell what's really going to happen with this at the moment, but honestly, if it does play out, it's going to be a phenomenal trade, and it's one to not really miss out on. So keep a key eye on USD yen. In my opinion, this goes, it's going to be sick, so keep an eye on for that. The next one I am looking at is Euro US dollar. So Euro US dollar needs some time to develop. It could just drop off, but I think, like I said, if USD pairs are gonna sell off, then Euro pairs could go aggressive, and we could tap into this, which kind of works in line with those larger flags that we are looking at. So I would look for it to kind of just aggressively start pulling up, whilst the DXY is selling off, and then when the US dollar starts selling off and then finds its sort of floor and starts coming back, then we can see it kind of work. So we just need to basically eye this up and wait now. Hopefully I'm looking for price to eventually come back up here, give me that prime entry that's going to be solid, and then I'll get in for that big move. So keep that one a keen eye on, but I don't think it's going to shape up now. It could be a tomorrow trade or the day after, so bear that in mind. But if it does pop in today, I've got an alert set just to be safe, but I don't need to be eyeing it up. I just kept it on wildcards. It's not on main watch, but if it alerts me in, then I'll easily be on main watch. So that's basically it for EU. AU is the next one, and I think AU is actually really nice. Even though it's somewhat getting very messy down here right now, don't worry about it. If price can come back up here, tap into our alert, then we can be looking for that short position to go low. That's basically my gameplay. I'll be extra patient with that, but you have to bear in mind that if we do start gravitating up aggressively at some point, that is also a possibility. So don't get sucked into this small flag here. Just bear in mind that there is this as well on the table. But for now, just keep it simple. And don't worry about this outer structure here. Just kind of look for, is there that possibility if it comes into this trend line and we get that sort of rejection, then we're aware that sell off. And we know that with Aussie US dollar, that this is quite common for price to come in, give you this sort of 1, 2, 3, and then within here create something a little bit more complicated and then drop off in the middle. Then we don't get that third touch. So understanding your characteristics of pairs is very important as well, but knowing like where and when it's applicable is extremely important, and know that this is a good possibility for an aggressive short as well. So that's basically it for Aussie US dollar. And in terms of the short, as we saw in the SMB, we do have, potentially to this override point here, and then we can even go down with even more aggression. So I think Aussie US dollar is also going to be phenomenal. It's on watch today. I think, it could aggressively just move up. I think looking at where price is now, we could just have that small push up here. From here, we can just go and then tap into that and then sell off. So in terms of a counter trend trade, there could potentially be one in here. And if I just mark this on here, counter trend trade, we just say we slip it in here for around about 10 pip. Yeah, I mean, it's probably 5%. I mean, it's not really one that I'm going to really entertain, to be honest. I'm looking for a better trade with more protection and so forth. So yeah, I'll wait for something a little bit better. Remember, this isn't the most cleanest of structures as well. It doesn't have to be, but just bear in mind that there's 2 or 3 variations of what could happen. So that's basically Aussie US dollar for me. And yeah, we'll move on to the next one now. So USD CAD, this is great. So if we just drop off to the higher time frame quickly and we have a little look at this, we are gravitating to this low. Now, we've tapped into it before. We squeezed lower, and we didn't quite make it. We kind of near missed to it. Now, understand that we don't have to come down here, but it's probable that we will, given that we've created this sort of corrective structure now. What I will be looking at is, with the US dollar potentially selling off, this could basically piggyback off that momentum and we could maybe get enough drop off to go. So as we know, we are getting a little bit of a bull push. Do we get enough of a push to tap into potentially here? And then we get structure forming into here. I'm not too worried about this, but do we get structure forming into this? If we set an alert just below it, just so we have enough time to kind of prepare and look at it, there'll be a few US related pairs probably popping off at the same time. We have this as a middle section, right, to this as well. Not too concerned with it as well, like I said. And then we'll wait for this as the 1, 2, 3. And then yeah, essentially let's just see if we can tap into this as the override. And yeah, so if we get that, that's good, because in sequence of things, that could be an easy move for 1, 2, 3, and then we can go for the long. So that's basically a very good one-on-one trade for me. Actually, I might put that one on main watch as well. But yeah, so quite a few things going on. Obviously, I've got 6 on 6 this week. It's been the first week in about 2-3 weeks where I've had 6 on 6. Usually, I've got 5 on 4 or 5 on 5, but there's a lot happening in the market now, a lot shaping up. So it's definitely worth, exposing yourself to these opportunities. And if it shapes up, it shapes up. Just make sure you're not compromising your mindset. And personal advice to people who are quite new as well, try and have less on. Less is more sometimes, because you can focus more energy on one pair and you don't force yourself taking loads of trades and then taking loads of losses. Especially managing your emotions is quite difficult as a newer trader. So what you tend to find is that you might make a winning trade on USD CAD and then you start going shopping. Literally, you go shopping on all these other pairs and then you start trying to force the market with the profit because you think you've got all this free additional risk. But what you're actually risking is your own capital. You your hard-earned money. You made that money, but now you want to go shopping with it. Well, you can go shopping with it, absolutely, but then you risk the probability of losing your money because you're forcing the market at that point, but you don't realize it because you think, oh well, this is kind of valid, this is okay. Well, sometimes you don't need to. Sometimes you can make enough profit in a day and just be like, hey, listen, let me take a step back, let me enjoy the feeling, and let me move forward to the next day and work on the next, and compound that over time, and you're actually going to reach higher levels of success than just kind of jumping in the market as and when. But anyway, well, here we are with USD CAD. USD CAD just waiting for that impulse up. We're going to look for it. If it starts impulsing, carries on, it is what it is. But if we do get some sort of rejection in this area, that's going to be phenomenal. I don't think it's going to be coming in any candle soon. I think maybe we could be looking at some point late today. So alert is set, structure is marked, override is there. That's all we got to do now and wait for that opportunity, and then we're in for it. The next one I have is EuroCAD. Now alert is set below, just need it to kind of drop off at this point. I want it to really just kind of convince people we're going on, still going short. This one's quite easy to kind of look at. It's neutral. You can see with the structure as well, you know, we've got two game plays there. We either drop down, push back up, flag, push up, or we push down, flag, push down. You know, it is what it is. We just got to wait and see. But at the moment, it is looking like we could potentially be forming a head and shoulders as well. Just keep that in mind. So I'll move these two structures across because they don't need to be in the way. But just bear in mind that we can always get something like this where we kind of just drop off, come back up, and then we go. That is not uncommon. You know, we see it a lot of the time that, you know, price is now just kind of creating this correction here to create the head, to correct up, correct again, and then go. And then next thing you know, we have a head and shoulders at the bottom of structure, which should have been taken or seen, and then it's a mistrade. So keep that in mind, that there's definitely a structure there, but I wouldn't bank all my bucks on a head and shoulders at this point. I'll just wait patiently to see how structure forms. We could just get a drop off, an aggressive push back up. It is what it is, but at the moment I don't really need to put this one on watch. I'm going to be extra patient. I don't want to be entering the position anywhere down here. I want to be waiting until position is kind of confirmed that we're moving back up, and then I'll be looking for some structure to get involved on the way back up. So that's EuroCAD for me. Very base and simple. It's going to be probably a midweek trade, late trade, but if it shapes up, it shapes up, and I know it's going to be a phenomenal entry if we do get that long position. However, bear in mind we still can continue and go short, so very neutral with this one. And the last one, but not the least, is Aussie Swiss. Now Aussie Swiss is honestly, besides GBP Yen, is my favorited pair as well. Right now, I mean, definitely been eyeing it up since the top. As we're in this hover zone, I've just been waiting patiently, very patient, to potentially wait to see if we can come up here. If we do come up here, this is exactly where I want to be getting in the market and where I want to be entering in, and hopefully that's going to be one of my prime trades. So that's one of the most exciting things for me, is actually just being extra patient and waiting for these to play out, because I can't really express the feeling you get when you are putting in all your disciplines and your patience and putting everything in, and then when a trade comes about and you take it, win or loss, you just feel good, because all of that kind of comes into intuition, and then usually most of the time it's a win. Very rarely it's a loss, but you know your good trades, you know what trades you capitalize on really well, and I think at the end of the day you find your edge. You know what gives you confidence, what doesn't give you confidence, and even if I took the trade as a loss, I still don't mind, because I put in all the work to make sure that I could get to that point, so it doesn't really compromise it. I just know that the sequence of times that it can happen works in my favor, and understanding the probabilities, having that abundant mindset, having that clarity, thinking from a very, very clear space of mind is so important. So like I said, super exciting. This is going to be a phenomenal trade. I have a strong feeling that with this news coming out, which doesn't really matter, like I said, but with all this news coming out over here, will that just give it a strong impulse and aggression to start that momentum to get up here? And if we get that, phenomenal. That's when I could potentially be looking to get involved in the market. So give it some time, let it materialize. It'll be great, and we'll have to wait and see. If this materializes further and becomes something larger, have to evaluate and wait and see it case by case, but at the moment this is looking good. Super excited, like I said, just got to wait and see. So that's basically my watch list and wildcards for this week. There isn't really much else that I can kind of say. I think best trade on the table right now was definitely EJ. So I think even though in some scenarios some people might get a bit bummed out and be like, oh man, it's a shame that I missed it, you know, you just got to keep a big smile and keep your head high, because honestly, be so proud that you see trades like that. You know, if you see something and you missed it, you should be so proud of yourself, because it played out the way that you thought it was going to play out, and then you need to go back and reflect on it and literally take a snapshot of it, store it on one of your Notion pages or your Excel sheet, and just really evaluate it and see the time that it went, you know, where it kind of went from, and then see if you can learn from it, and maybe it can actually potentially level up your trading to the next stage. And then if you're still confused and you don't know, perhaps share it with another trader, or, you know, I'm more than happy to look at it myself and share my perspective. But, you know, like I said, there's people out there that you can share it with, and they can give you their perspective, and they can give you tweaks and say, hey, listen, you know, you were looking for example, you know, you were looking for a trade down here, but there was like a mini trade just above it there, and the market gapped when it opened and then just kind of filled. Was there already really enough in the charts? Like, did you anticipate that this could have been a possibility? And then you just look at it like that, and then you're thinking, oh, okay, I didn't really see that as a pattern or this, and then I was hoping they will come back. You know, loads of things. Like, you can just, perspective is the most valuable thing when you're a trader. You know, mindset and perspective, but mostly perspective. And, you know, that's one thing that I value the most, is that as a trader, that my perspective has evolved and got better and better as the years went on. So, you know, you should really work on yours if you think, you know, or you feel a lot of emotions when you miss trades, and, you know, it depresses you or upsets you, and then you start making bad decisions in correlation with that. That becomes with a lack of patience and a lack of discipline, because when you have discipline and patience, you know that, and you understand your trading inside out, so that you understand that it's pointless for me to take a trade right here, because this can just drop off and come back up. You know what I mean? Like, we can see the sequence of things very clearly. It's just how we take advantage of them is so important. So, going off with that, I want you guys to have a good week. If you have any questions, or, you know, anything I mentioned wasn't clear, please let me know. Obviously, as you can tell, it's going to be a phenomenal week. Not only for these pairs, there's so many other pairs that I was looking at as well that I had to filter out when I did my Friday, Saturday, and Sunday market breakdown. But honestly, phenomenal week ahead. There's more than enough to capitalize on. There's so many pairs. So, you know, if you are trading something else that isn't on my watch list and you would like me to perhaps make a short video on it as well, I'm more than happy to do that. You know, I love sharing, I love charting, I love basically talking about the charts, what's happening in the markets. So absolutely wicked. So have a great evening, have a great day, and we'll catch up in the next video. Don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button, and yeah, if you have any comments, just drop them below.